Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. They thought the land was forgotten, that the heir would never return, that a signature scribbled by a dying man no longer breathing would go unnoticed. But when Austin Meredith came back, he didn't just bring memories, he brought war, and this time the dirt would remember every footprint. I hadn't been back to Teller County in over a decade. 12 years, to be exact, since I'd last set foot on the land where I spent most of my childhood summers chasing frogs, helping my uncle fix fences, and learning how to read the sky like a weather map. Life pulled me in a different direction. Denver, job after job, and eventually a solid career as a land surveyor. But the letter that arrived 2 weeks ago changed everything. It was a thick envelope with my name handwritten on the front. Inside was the formal notice of my Uncle John's passing. Alongside it, a notarized will, a letter from his lawyer, and a deed. 20 acres. Mine now. Just like he'd always said it would be. No disputes, no liens, no conditions. I was the sole heir. I drove out early on a Thursday. My old Tacoma packed light, just a duffel, my surveying kit, drone gear, and a battered field notebook with some of Uncle John's old sketches and notes I'd kept for sentimental reasons. The highway thinned into winding 2 lanes the deeper I got into Teller. Mountains loomed in the distance, yellow aspens shivered in the breeze, and the cell signal evaporated. God, I miss this kind of quiet. The entrance to the property was exactly how I remembered it. An old split-log gate, half rotted but still standing, leaning like a drunk against the post. Beyond it, a gravel path curled down into the tree line where the ranch house waited. Only this time, the gate was blocked. 2 white Ford Explorers were parked right across the entrance, lights flashing a dull amber. Both vehicles bore bold decals, Suncrest Ridge HOA enforcement. 2 men stepped out as I pulled up, sunglasses, buzz cuts, radio earpieces. One of them even had a clipboard. It felt more like I was pulling up to a checkpoint in a war zone than coming home. "Good morning, sir." "You can't go past this point," said clipboard guy, his voice firm but polite in the way people are when they think they have absolute authority. "This area is part of a protected development zone under Suncrest Ridge HOA. Access is restricted." I blinked. "No, it's not. This is private property, Meredith Ranch. Been in my family for over 60 years. The second guy, younger, with a scar on his chin, squinted at me. "Nobody's lived here in years. This land's been considered dormant. HOA's got plans in motion to integrate this space into a community project. Picnic and park zone." I couldn't help it. I laughed. "You're out of your minds. This parcel doesn't fall under HOA jurisdiction. The boundary line runs 80 feet west of the creek. You're standing on it." Clipboard guy raised an eyebrow. "Do you have any documentation proving that, sir?" "Yeah, I do." I reached into the glove box, pulled out the envelope with the title deed and will, and stepped out of the truck. Notarized, filed, recorded. "This land's mine." They both hovered over the documents, reading slowly. Then they stepped aside and whispered into radios. I didn't wait. I climbed back into my truck and nudged the bumper right up to the gate, idling as I dialed the county sheriff's office. It took them a while to get someone on the line, but when I did, I explained the situation. "Sir, that property is definitely yours," said Deputy Keller, the sheriff's office clerk. "Suncrest Ridge HOA has no legal claim to any of that acreage. If they're preventing access, they're violating property law." "Appreciate the confirmation," I said. Then I leaned out the window and looked at the 2 HOA enforcers. "You boys might want to radio that in." They didn't say anything, just stood there in awkward silence while I got out, walked around to the side of the gate, and squeezed through the gap in the fence like I used to when I was 12. The gravel path crunched under my boots. Trees leaned over the driveway like they were trying to whisper secrets. At the end of the bend, the old ranch house came into view, still standing, though the roof had a slight dip and the porch was losing its battle with time. I took a breath. The air smelled like pine needles, dust, and memory. That evening, as I lit a fire in the rusted outdoor pit and sat on a cracked Adirondack chair, headlights bounced down the path. A black SUV, newer, sleeker. It stopped just short of the house and out stepped a woman in a navy pantsuit and pearl earrings. Behind her, a man in a sport coat holding a leather binder and another in khakis with rolled-up blueprints under his arm. She marched up the path like she owned the place. "Mr. Meredith, I presume?" she said with a tight smile. I stood up slowly. "Depends on who's asking." Karen Aldridge, president of the Suncrest Ridge HOA. We need to talk." Oh, hell. The next morning, the air had that dry, early autumn bite that always made you reach for a second cup of coffee. I stood on the front porch of my uncle's house, sipping mine, listening to the crows arguing in the treetops. From where I stood, everything looked the same as it had when I was a kid. Same gravel path, same rusted mailbox, even the old wind chime over the door that used to scare the hell out of me during thunderstorms. But something was off. I noticed it just after sunrise. A small orange flag about the size of a playing card stuck in the dirt near the western edge of the property. Then another, and another. A thin red string ran between two stakes like a tripwire. It didn't take a genius to figure out what was going on. Someone had been marking this land, my land. I followed the line on foot. It ran straight across the field, looped down near the creek, on the wrong side of the legal boundary, and ended right behind the barn where 3 more orange flags flapped in the wind. One of them had a laminated tag stapled to it. Community Green Space. Stage 1 Perimeter. Survey complete. Suncrest Ridge, HOA. The logo was printed in the corner. I stared at that sign for a long time. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Back inside, I pulled out the paperwork again. Deed. Survey maps. The title transfer was clean. The HOA's boundary was clearly marked, stopped a good 80 feet before the creek. That was a hard recorded line. No easements, no encroachments. But these markings, they were on my side of the line, and not by a little. By 12, maybe 15 feet in some spots. This wasn't a misunderstanding. I drove into town straight to the county recorder's office. Small place. Looked more like a DMV than a seat of land law, but the folks were helpful. I gave them my parcel number and asked if any modifications had been filed in the past 2 years. "Oh, sure," the clerk said casually, clicking through records. There was a proposed zoning overlay from Suncrest Ridge HOA last spring. They filed it under a public use expansion clause, I think. "Hold on, I'll print it." She handed me a 7-page packet stapled at the corner. My parcel, Lot 14, Block 3, was highlighted in yellow on page 3. It was listed under Community Green Corridor Phase 2, marked vacant/inactive asset. There was even a note in the margin, "No known heir, subject to county absorption per code 53-9C. I stared at the line, "No known heir." My name was already on the deed. "Who submitted this?" I asked, even though I knew the answer. She flipped to the cover page. "Karen Aldridge, president of Suncrest Ridge HOA. That name was going to be carved into my molars before this was over. I left the building with my fist clenched around the packet and went straight to the county assessor's office, where I requested the grant application tied to this community park project. The guy at the counter was helpful, but clearly annoyed to be dealing with something this messy. Still, he handed over a scanned copy. I leafed through it in the parking lot. There it was. A federal funding request for $2 million to develop an integrated greenbelt through underutilized and transitional property at the border of Suncrest Ridge. And there, on the 3rd page, was a signature from my Uncle John. Meredith, dated exactly 32 days before he died. The only problem? He was in hospice by then. Unconscious. Non-communicative. I called the hospice facility from the lot. The nurse manager was polite but firm. Mr. Meredith was non-responsive after mid-January. He was on full palliative sedation. No verbal communication, certainly nothing like signing legal documents. Fucking hell. Back at the property, I walked the perimeter again. That red string, they'd moved the HOA fence line in. Subtly, but enough to eat into my land. Posts had been resunk, and there were new lights, solar-powered HOA standard issue, on 3 of them. And guess what? All of them were on my side. That night, as I reviewed footage from the trail cam I'd set up earlier in the week, a dark SUV rolled slowly past the edge of the property just beyond the barn. Lights off. I watched the video 3 times, zooming in on the license plate. It was blurry, but I recognized the make and model, the same SUV that dropped Karen off the day before. The next morning, while I was tightening up the old wire fence on the southern edge, a silver Mercedes pulled up on the public road and idled with the window down. A man in his early 40s stepped out, button-down shirt, leather loafers in the mud, big smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You Austin Meredith?" he called. I nodded slowly, standing upright and letting the fence tensioner unwind. He pulled out a card. "Michael Stroud, project architect." I'm working with Suncrest Ridge HOA on the expansion. Heard you were out here. Yeah, I said, not taking the card. You hear I own this land too? He chuckled. Well, that's technically still under review. A lot of legal ambiguity around this parcel. Paperwork's a mess. Karen assumed it was unclaimed, but I'll be honest with you, man to man, this park project, it's already been promised. City meetings, county meetings, everyone wants this. I wiped sweat from my brow, eyes locked on him. I'm here to make a fair offer. Cash sale, clean break. You can walk away now before it turns ugly. I've got buyers lined up if you're willing. How ugly? I asked. He shrugged. I mean, I'd rather not see the HOA file injunctions, drag this through civil court. They've got deep pockets. Grant money in play. It'd be a mess. I stared at him for a long moment, then picked up a piece of surveyor's tape from the fence and held it out. You see this line, Michael, I said. That's the boundary. Everything past this, my land, my name, my rights. So, if you're going to make threats, make 'em better. He paused, lips tightening, just trying to keep things civil. Then get off my property. You'd think a clear title and a legal deed would be enough. Turns out, in Teller County, it just paints a bigger target on your back. 2 days after the little chat with the architect, I woke up to find something new sprayed across the gate in thick red paint. Illegal trespasser. The letters were uneven, like whoever did it had rushed, but they were big. Tall enough to be read from the road, bold enough to make it look like I was the problem here. I stood in front of it, coffee in hand, trying not to let the heat in my chest rise to my fists. The HOA fence still hugged the wrong line of my property like an uninvited guest refusing to leave. And now this, open vandalism. I checked the trail cam footage, nighttime timestamp. Low res, but there it was. A Suncrest Ridge HOA security truck, same model I'd seen the other night, pulling up to the entrance. Someone got out with a can of spray paint, did the job in less than 40 seconds, then sped off. By noon, my name was being dragged through the HOA newsletter like roadkill. The article's title, Who is Austin Meredith? Subtitle, A Stranger's Sudden Claim Threatens Our Community Green Future. The body of the piece was a mess of insinuations and lies, claims that I had questionable intentions, that my uncle's will might have been manufactured, that I had a history of volatility and once faced disciplinary action for aggressive behavior in Denver. They even threw in a bold suggestion that I wasn't really related to John Meredith, a possible distant grandson from a previous relationship. According to unnamed sources, I damn near choked on my sandwich reading it. But it didn't stop there. Fake Facebook profiles started appearing in the HOA group, concerned residents sharing what they found about me online. Alleged mugshots, anonymous reviews from former coworkers accusing me of threats, debt, even harassment. None of it was true, but the sheer volume made it look real to the casual eye. One video even had a still from my press conference, me saying, "This land isn't going to anyone else." They cut the context and played it over dramatic music with a title card. Aggressive squatter threatens HOA legacy. This was beyond smear. It was digital arson. I dug in, spent hours reverse searching profiles, IP logs, metadata. The HOA newsletter's online portal had an upload log tied to a static IP from inside the Suncrest Ridge administrative office. Rookie mistake. One of the bot accounts accidentally posted from the same IP as Karen's personal campaign blog. Another shared a drive link that led to a folder titled Meredith_dossier_final. Classy. I forwarded everything to my attorney in Denver and then to a journalist I knew at a mid-sized online outlet in Colorado Springs. She said it would take a few days to verify, but she was interested. Meanwhile, I kept getting visits. One night, I heard something thud on the roof around 11. I grabbed my flashlight and came outside just in time to catch a shadow ducking behind the barn. I fired up the drone and sent it up over the ridge. Within seconds, the camera locked onto a figure crouched in the trees. Guy in an HOA security jacket, holding a paintball gun. What the hell were they planning? Redecorate the shingles? I caught him on the drone feed, clear as day. He spotted the red light, panicked, and bolted. I saved the footage, time-stamped it, and sent it to the sheriff's office. Again, they said, "We'll look into it," which meant they wouldn't. The next morning, I drove into town and printed 3 signs: private property, under video surveillance, Trespassing will be prosecuted. Violators will be filmed and published. Then I went to the hardware store, bought motion lights, mounted new infrared cameras, and doubled the drone patrols. I even installed solar-powered speakers that played loud barking sounds when motion was detected near the perimeter. Petty? Maybe, but it felt good. A couple of neighbors drove by slow that afternoon. Some waved. Most didn't. I could see the fear in their eyes. Fear that maybe Karen was right. Maybe I was dangerous. It didn't help that she staged a neighborhood walk on the Greenbelt that evening, conveniently passing right by the fence. She was all smiles, laughing with families, children in tow, giving out flyers that read, "Keep our park safe. Say no to outsiders, outsiders." I'd grown up on this land, learned how to drive stick shift in that field, built a treehouse in that dead oak behind the barn, buried our family dog beneath the creek rocks. But to them, I was just the guy standing between them and a picnic table with city-funded lighting. Let them walk. Let them talk. I wasn't going anywhere. If they thought I'd roll over, they didn't know me, or my uncle. I spent the next 3 days assembling a dache so thick it could be used as a blunt weapon. Every flagged property line, every blurry license plate, every frame from my drone that showed HOA vehicles creeping where they didn't belong. I had camera footage of Karen herself pacing near the red survey string, blueprint documents misaligned with official county maps, and screenshots of the fake social media profiles posting in coordinated bursts. But the gem, the crown jewel, was the grant application. I'd pored over it a dozen times, and there it was, a signed statement from John Meredith, my uncle, consenting to the development. Only he couldn't have signed anything. The man had been unresponsive for weeks by then. I checked with the hospice center again. His motor function had shut down completely a month before the alleged date of signature. That meant one of two things. Either Karen had forged a signature, or she'd had help faking it for her. Either way, I had them. I hired an independent licensed land surveyor out of Pueblo, guy named Everett, gray-bearded, sharp-eyed, ex-military. Didn't care much for small talk, but he respected clean lines and legal boundaries. We spent a full day walking the perimeter with his GPS rig and drone-mounted LIDAR. When he finished the data run, he pulled out the preliminary map, printed in black and red ink. "Your property line's been breached in 6 separate locations," he said. "That fence they installed, average incursion of 10 to 23 feet. It's not a mistake. Someone repositioned those posts." He paused. "They also drove 2 concrete anchors into your soil for that bench near the creek. That's criminal trespass under Colorado code." I nodded. "Good. Put that in writing." While Everett worked on the formal report, I met with my attorney over Zoom and uploaded the files. Then I emailed a compressed dossier to the Colorado Department of Local Affairs, the office that handles grant distribution. Subject line: Fraudulent HOA Development Grant, Suncrest Ridge HOA. I wasn't done. I remembered something from my uncle's old notebooks. He used to sketch out topography, boundaries, even journal his phone calls. In a milk crate in the barn, I found a worn moleskin labeled 2020-2022. Inside were not only notes about wildlife, planting plans, and equipment maintenance, but also dated comments like April 8th, HOA. Woman stopped by again. Wants me to donate the west lot. Told her to get bent 12th of May. Same woman. Brought a contractor. Showed them the deed line. They didn't like that those entries, in my uncle's own handwriting, were gold. That night, I invited the journalist from Colorado Springs out to the property. Her name was Felicia, mid-30s, smart, skeptical, the kind who'd rather get bit by a mosquito than take a press release at face value. She listened, took notes, reviewed footage, flipped through documents, and finally said, "Okay, this isn't just a land dispute. This is fraud, attempted land theft, and misappropriation of public funds. Glad someone sees it." She asked to film a quick on-site interview. I agreed. We stood in front of the creek where the bench had been installed, half of it already rotting like everything else Karen touched. "What's your message to the HOA board?" she asked, camera rolling. I looked dead into the lens. "You don't get to steal from the dead and lie to the living just because you think you can. This is my land. It always was. And I'm not leaving it aired the next night." The reaction was instant. Emails started coming in from other residents in Teller County, people who'd been bullied, pressured, or misled by HOA boards. Some even mentioned Karen by name. A man from the neighboring subdivision wrote that she tried something similar 5 years ago, offering to absorb his back pasture into a trail system, then having it quietly fenced off while he was hospitalized. The online article blew up. Reddit picked it up. Twitter, or whatever it's called now, had a thread with drone screenshots and Karen maps comparing HOA claims to real GIS data. The kicker? Someone sent me an internal email thread, leaked from a grant reviewer at the Department of Local Affairs. Suncrest Ridge HOA has a prior flag on record for false zoning statements. Meredith property looks dirty. Recommend full audit before release of funds. I printed it out, slid it into the top of my dossier, and labeled the tab in red ink. Incoming fire. It only took 48 hours for the pressure to crack her mask. The HOA office, a beige stucco building behind the Suncrest Ridge clubhouse, became the subject of evening news shots. Reporters hovered near the parking lot. Neighbors were suddenly camera shy. Karen herself hadn't made a statement yet, but word was internal board meetings had turned hostile. 3 members reportedly walked out. One of them even reached out to my attorney with a vague message. I had no idea. I'm sorry, but I knew Karen. She wasn't the type to apologize. She was the type to double down, dig in, and drag everyone else with her. Sure enough, 2 mornings later, I heard a vehicle idling near the south gate. I stepped outside with coffee in one hand and my phone in the other, already recording. A landscaping crew, 3 trucks, uniforms, no HOA logos, just generic green polos and vinyl-wrapped trailers. I walked up to the first guy who was unstrapping a weed trimmer. You're on private property, I said. Who sent you? HOA, he replied, uncertain. We're just here to clear brush. We were told this is part of the new park extension. I showed him the sign, the boundary, the cameras. Then I pointed to the no trespassing notice stapled to the oak post 10 feet from his bumper. Still want to do this? He raised his hands and stepped back. The rest of the crew packed up and left without a word. By mid-afternoon, Karen arrived in person. SUV, as always. She wasn't alone. This time she brought 3 people, the same architect from before, another guy in a dress shirt who smelled like City Hall, and a woman I didn't recognize, holding a rolled-up banner and clipboard. Karen walked ahead of the group like a general approaching a battlefield she hadn't realized she'd already lost. Mr. Meredith, she began, with that brittle civility only HOA presidents and IRS agents have perfected. We're trying to be reasonable here. That's a first, I replied. Let me guess, more community outreach? She didn't flinch. This land has already been presented to the community as a shared space. You're creating confusion and division. Frankly, people are starting to feel unsafe. People? I asked. Or just you? Her jaw tightened. The woman with the clipboard unrolled the banner between 2 stakes. They hammered it right into the dirt. Suncrest Ridge Future Park. Built for all. Stay tuned for community events. Right on my land. I stepped forward, pulled the banner up, snapped the stakes, and dropped the whole thing at Karen's feet. This is your final warning. Next time, it's criminal trespass charges. The City Hall guy tried to smooth things over. Mr. Meredith, we understand your position, but the project is already in motion. It's fraud, I snapped. You built a park on land that doesn't belong to you. You forged documents. You lied on federal paperwork. This isn't a dispute. It's a crime scene. They left. No apology. No retreat. Just cold stares and SUV doors slamming like punctuation marks. That night, my internet connection dropped. Then my power flickered twice. I checked the breaker box. Nothing tripped. But the next morning, the gas company showed up with a shutoff notice for non-payment. Only I'd never received a bill. Turns out someone had filed a change of address request for the property. My mail had been rerouted to a PO. Box registered under a fake name in Colorado Springs. Petty, illegal, and easily traceable. The sheriff's deputy I spoke to was finally starting to sound embarrassed. That's the 3rd complaint about Suncrest Ridge in 2 months, he admitted. We're opening an investigation into mail fraud and property interference. Just hang tight, Mr. Meredith. Trust me, I said. I'm not going anywhere. But Karen wasn't done. That afternoon, as I reviewed more drone footage, I noticed something strange near the fence on the northeast edge. Movement. A man in a hoodie and gloves crawling near one of the camera posts. He pulled out what looked like a hammer. He smashed the lens. I was already running. By the time I reached the ridge, he was halfway back to a black pickup. I caught a partial plate, started filming as he drove off. 2 hours later, HOA's official Facebook page posted this. Due to the recent escalation in tensions caused by a hostile outsider, we regretfully cancel all upcoming park events. Our community must remain vigilant. If you see something, say something. They painted me as the aggressor. Again. That evening, I updated all cameras, uploaded new footage to a secure cloud drive, and filed a digital report with the county DA's office. I also left a voicemail for Felicia, the reporter, told her things were getting worse. Her response was swift. Next morning, a new headline ran across the local news site. HOA Power Play, How One Man's Inheritance Sparked a Community Scandal. It featured video stills, my drone footage, grant documents, and a handwritten note from my uncle's notebook. Karen's smiling photo, cropped from a Suncrest Ridge block party, was the article's banner image. The caption underneath. President of HOA accused of land fraud, forgery, and harassment. The comments section, brutal. I made popcorn. 2 weeks. That's how long it took for the quiet to turn deadly. Not literally, but if looks could kill, the ones Karen was getting in every HOA board meeting could have scorched concrete. Her photo was all over local media now, floating under headlines like Forgery Allegations Erupt in HOA Land Dispute and Suncrest Ridge President. Under fire after leaked documents surface, she stopped making public appearances. The cheerful Facebook posts from HOA vanished. Their website went under maintenance. But I wasn't done. With my attorney's help, I submitted a formal complaint to the Teller County District Attorney's Office, attaching a notarized affidavit, drone footage, GPS data from the independent survey, metadata from the forged digital forms, and a forensic analysis of the John Meredith signature that showed at least 6 points of inconsistency with his known writing samples. 3 days later, I received a call. Mr. Meredith, this is Detective Rowan with the Teller County Economic Crimes Unit. We're opening an investigation into HOA President Karen Aldridge for suspected forgery, misappropriation of funds, and attempted property fraud. We'd like you to come in and give a full statement. You want to talk about satisfaction? That was it. Right there, but I wasn't about to sit on my hands waiting for a courtroom date. I contacted the grant committee directly. They'd already frozen disbursement to Suncrest Ridge pending a full audit. But when I mentioned the forged hospice-era signature and the false zoning overlays, their tone shifted. This may qualify for full federal oversight, one of the officials told me, and potential criminal referral. Then came the cherry on top. Felicia, the journalist, called to say the HOA's own financial officer had resigned and agreed to go on record. His name was Brandon Kessler. Mid-30s, looked like the kind of guy who still ironed his jeans, but he had receipts. Literal ones. We met at a coffee shop just outside the county line. He brought a flash drive and a printed folder marked Suncrest Ridge Financials Internal Do Not Share. He slid it across the table like he was handing me radioactive material. She pressured me into signing off on $470,000 for pre-development expenses, he said, voice low. But half of it went to companies tied to her cousin. One of them doesn't even exist. And the rest? He shrugged. Materials that were never delivered. I tried to raise flags, but Karen shut me down. Said it was all part of a long-term vision. Did you know about the forgery? He hesitated. Not until I saw your uncle's name on that grant form. I knew he was dead. I did the books when the HOA sent flowers. We both sat in silence for a while. I felt a strange mix of vindication and nausea. Brandon wasn't a good guy, but maybe he wasn't entirely rotten either. The next morning, HOA received a subpoena from the Teller County Grand Jury. The news broke within hours. One of the board members resigned live during a community Zoom meeting. A leaked recording from that call showed Karen trying to blame an internal error for the forged signature, only for another board member to shout back, "We told you not to go through with it." By now, my property had become a kind of no man's land. The fake HOA lights were off. The trail signs had been pulled. The picnic bench by the creek had mysteriously vanished overnight, probably yanked in panic. Even the security truck that used to lurk near the fence line stopped showing up. But Karen still hadn't quit. That was the thing. I knew her type. Power wasn't a job for her, it was an identity. So I wasn't surprised when just 2 days later she showed up on my land again. This time she brought a demolition contractor, big guy in a vest. Backhoe parked nearby. I was in the barn reviewing aerial scans when I heard the rumble. Came out just in time to see them unloading steaks and paint cans. "Back away from the property," I shouted, phone already recording. Karen turned. No pearls this time, just sunglasses and fury. "This land is being cleared for Phase 1, she snapped. "You've had your tantrum. The board is moving forward." "Karen," I said, stepping closer, "you are trespassing." Again. "I have it on video. I have 6 prior incidents documented. Do you want to add a 7th before the indictment drops?" She didn't even blink. "You're bluffing." That's when I heard the second engine. Police cruiser, blue lights, gravel kicking up behind it. Karen turned. 2 deputies stepped out, one of them holding a warrant. "Karen Aldridge," the taller one called. "You're under arrest for forgery of legal documents, fraudulent misappropriation of HOA funds, and criminal trespass. Please step away from the equipment." For the first time since this circus began, she looked small. No words, no yelling, just frozen, pale. As if reality had finally caught up with the fantasy she'd been selling for years. They cuffed her right there on my land, next to the creek she tried to pave into a walkway. The contractor backed off, hands in the air, and me. I stood there, arms folded, watching the woman who tried to erase my family's legacy get loaded into the back of a cruiser. I didn't smile, I didn't gloat. But I will say this, it never felt so good to stand completely still on ground that no one else could touch. The courtroom smelled like varnished wood and stale carpet cleaner. Karen sat at the defense table, posture rigid, like a mannequin left in the rain. No more sunglasses, no sharp suit, just a muted gray blazer and that exhausted, bitter look people get when they realize the cavalry isn't coming. I sat across the aisle next to my attorney, suit pressed, back straight, hands calm. I wasn't here to gloat. I was here to finish this. The trial took 3 days. The prosecution brought everything: forged documents, bank transfers to shell companies, the altered grant maps, even a video of Karen pressuring Brandon Kessler during a closed HOA budget meeting. Brandon testified in person. The man looked like he hadn't slept in weeks, but his words were clear. "She told me if I didn't sign off, I'd be replaced with someone who would." Felicia, the journalist, was there too, taking notes, recording snippets, nodding solemnly when they mentioned her story, broke the investigation wide open. The room was packed. Suncrest Ridge residents, reporters, and a few former HOA members who suddenly remembered how to look ashamed. I was called to the stand on day 2. I walked the jury through the entire timeline: the inheritance, the fence line, the fake park signs, the spray paint, the mail fraud, the forged signature while my uncle was dying in hospice. At one point, the prosecutor asked me how it felt to be painted as a squatter by my own neighbors. I paused. It didn't feel like paint. It felt like fire, and it was meant to burn my name out of my own history. Karen flinched. In the end, the evidence wasn't just overwhelming, it was surgical. The jury took less than 4 hours. Guilty. Forgery of legal documents, criminal trespass, fraudulent misappropriation of HOA funds, attempted unlawful annexation of private land. Mail fraud, harassment. The judge didn't hold back. Karen was sentenced to 18 months in county jail. No cushy deal. 5 years probation and a permanent ban from holding any leadership role in any HOA or nonprofit in the state of Colorado. Oh, and the HOA. Suncrest Ridge dissolved 2 weeks later. The residents held a vote, 94% in favor. Turns out, people don't like it when the president of their neighborhood committee tries to steal a park on forged hospice documents. The class action lawsuit came next. A group of 32 homeowners filed suit against Karen, her financial officer who cut a deal, and the law firm that blindly greenlit the grant paperwork. Damages were estimated around $600,000, with Karen on the hook for nearly half. But I wasn't done. My civil case went forward. The judge awarded me $3.2 million in damages, including emotional distress, property repair, loss of use, and, my personal favorite, targeted defamation with intent to disrupt lawful inheritance. I donated part of it to the county hospice where my uncle spent his final weeks. They named a garden bench after him, the real kind of bench. No grant money, no fake community project, just polished oak, honest brass plaque, and a view of the mountains he loved. As for the land, I rebuilt the original split log gate, had a crew come out and move the fence back to its rightful place, surveyed, notarized, GPS mapped, and certified by the same department that once ignored my first 3 complaints. And on the new steel gate, I installed a sign, white background. Black letters, bold. My land, my family, my story. Trespass is a felony. Ask Karen. The sign went viral. Again, sometimes hikers stop at the edge of the property just to take a photo. Kids make memes out of it. And you know what? Let them. They should know what happens when someone tries to steal something that's not theirs. They should know that just because someone wears a name tag and runs a newsletter doesn't mean they can rewrite the law. And they should know that a dead man's land still has a voice and someone willing to fight for it. It's been 6 months since the trial. The grass on the western edge of the property has started to grow back. I had the brush cleared and reseeded properly, and for the first time in years, the old trail down to the creek feels like home again. No fences where they don't belong. No cameras but mine. Just space, silence, and air that doesn't lie to you. The barn's got a new roof. The house has power, internet, and windows that don't rattle when the wind comes down off the ridge. I installed solar panels not for show, but because I never again want to rely on people who think they can shut me down with a phone call to the utility company. Neighbors wave now. Not all of them, but enough. Some bring casseroles. One guy, Vietnam vet, lives 2 plots over, told me he served with a Meredith back in the day. You from that line? He asked. I am, I said. All the way down. He nodded. That was enough. The land's not for sale. It never was. I had a few offers after the story went national. Developers with big plans, friendly voices, and envelopes full of zeros. But I told them the same thing I told Karen the first time she showed up in heels and entitlement. This is mine. Go build your legacy somewhere else. Funny thing is, I didn't know how much I needed this place until someone tried to take it from me. In Denver, I was just another surveyor. Just another guy behind a laptop analyzing elevation maps and right-of-way encroachments. But out here, I'm a steward, a witness, a damn firewall against fraud dressed in HOA polos and printed pamphlets. I still work, but now I do it on my terms. Local jobs, small town boundaries, a few landowner disputes that look mighty familiar. People trust me more now because they know I didn't just read the laws, I bled through them. As for Karen, she served her sentence. Quietly. No public statement. Her name disappeared from every HOA board in the state. Someone told me she tried to move to Arizona, start over, but the story followed her. You can't outrun federal indictments and viral drone footage. Brandon, the former finance officer, got a reduced sentence, then moved up north, sent me an email once, apologized, said he finally understood the difference between procedure and principle. I didn't respond. Some things don't need closing. Suncrest Ridge restructured as a voluntary neighborhood association. No enforcement trucks, no fake officers, just neighbors now, learning to breathe again without a boot on their backs. Last week, I hosted a barbecue. Small one, just a few folks. Burgers, beers, one busted lawn chair. No speeches, no HOA reps with clipboards. Before everyone left, I walked them down to the new fence line where I'd installed another sign, smaller than the other one, tucked beneath a pine. It read, "In memory of John Meredith. May no one ever steal your peace again." The wind shifted through the trees. No one said anything. And for once, that silence didn't feel threatening. It felt earned.